The international summit had been anticipated for months. Delegations from across the globe gathered in a sprawling hall adorned with flags, polished marble floors, and the hum of whispered conversations. The world's press had descended upon the venue, eager to capture every handshake, every frown, every carefully chosen word that might hint at the shifting balance of global power. Yet beneath the surface of diplomacy lay a quiet tension. Africa's rising leaders were demanding a voice long denied to them. Western powers, accustomed to setting the agenda, were now faced with a generation that refused to bow or beg. At the center of this shift stood a young man from Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. At just 36, Traoré embodied a defiance that unsettled old orders. He did not arrive with an entourage of luxury vehicles or a speech written by foreign consultants. He came with the conviction of someone who had lived the struggles he spoke of. To his people, he was not merely a president but a symbol that Africa could stand tall without permission from anyone. When his turn to speak arrived, the room hushed. Cameras zoomed in. Translators leaned forward. Traoré began slowly, his deep voice echoing with calm authority. "We are here," he declared, "not to ask for favors, but to remind the world that we are equals. My people have known centuries of struggle, yet we have never surrendered our dignity. You may have more wealth, more weapons, more influence, but what we possess, our resolve, our spirit, cannot be bought, cannot be intimidated, and cannot be silenced." The words struck like thunder. Some nodded in respect. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But then, from one side of the chamber, came an unexpected sound, soft at first, then sharper. A laugh. Representative Ilhan Omar tilted her head back, her shoulders shaking. At first, a few thought she had misunderstood a translation. But the laughter grew louder, echoing across the marble walls. Within moments, the entire hall was forced to reckon with the sound. She laughed and laughed, for 5 long minutes that stretched like an eternity. Delegates exchanged uneasy glances. Some covered their mouths in disbelief. Journalists scribbled furiously, sensing a scandal in the making. Traoré, however, did not move. His posture remained perfectly straight, his eyes fixed forward. He did not flinch, did not frown, did not allow even the shadow of discomfort to cross his face. It was as if he had expected such ridicule all along. Finally, the laughter subsided into silence. A silence so sharp it seemed to cut the air itself. All eyes turned back to Traoré, waiting to see if the young leader would falter. Instead, he took a single measured breath and spoke again. "You laugh," he began, each syllable deliberate. "Not because my words are foolish, but because they challenge what you have been taught to believe. You laugh because it is easier to mock than to face the truth. But understand this: when you laugh at me, you laugh at my people. You laugh at the farmers who coax life from parched soil, at the mothers who walk miles for water, at the children who dream despite being told they should not. Tell me, are they also worthy of your laughter?" The weight of his words fell over the hall like a storm. No one moved. Traoré's voice grew steadier, rising not in volume but in force. For centuries, Africa's pain has been entertainment for others. They laughed when we were chained. They laughed when we demanded freedom. They laughed when we declared independence, saying we would fail. Yet here I stand, proof that we are still here, still unbroken, still rising. You may laugh, but your laughter cannot erase history, and it cannot erase our future. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some lowered their gaze. Cameras flashed, capturing Omar's frozen expression as the young president's words pierced through the hall. Leadership, Traoré continued, is not measured by how loudly one ridicules another, but by how deeply one listens. My nation does not ask for charity. We do not beg for recognition. We demand respect, for respect is the birthright of all sovereign peoples. And no amount of laughter, no mockery, no dismissal can strip us of that right. At that moment, the silence was broken by the faintest sound of clapping. A delegate from Latin America began, soon joined by others from Asia, then Africa, until the entire hall erupted in thunderous applause. Leaders stood to their feet. The ovation rolled like a wave, drowning out the memory of ridicule, replacing it with admiration. Journalists rushed to send reports. Social media exploded within minutes. Hashtags praising Traoré trended globally. Hashtag dignity unshaken. Hashtag Traoré speaks truth. Hashtag respect Africa. Clips of the exchange spread like wildfire, viewed millions of times in hours. Omar, once seen as a bold voice herself, now faced a storm of criticism. Commentators accused her of arrogance, of undermining the very values she claimed to defend. In Washington, debates erupted. Some allies defended her, insisting her laughter was misinterpreted. But the damage was done. Headlines across Africa hailed Traoré as the leader who silenced mockery with dignity. In Ouagadougou, crowds filled the streets, waving flags, chanting his name, and replaying the viral clip on giant screens. To them, he had not simply defended himself, he had defended the soul of an entire continent. Meanwhile, in the halls of power elsewhere, the incident forced uncomfortable conversations. Diplomats whispered that the age of dismissing African leaders with condescension might finally be ending. Traoré's composure had set a precedent. Disrespect would no longer be tolerated quietly. For Omar, the fallout was swift. Invitations were withdrawn, interviews cancelled, critics emboldened. What had begun as a moment of mockery now threatened to overshadow her career. Her silence in the face of Traoré's rebuke spoke louder than any defense she might have given. But for Traoré, it was not about humiliation. In a closing statement later that evening, he addressed the press. "I did not come here to win applause, nor to shame anyone. I came to remind the world that laughter cannot erase dignity. My people know suffering, yes, but they also know pride, courage, and resilience. Let no one mistake our humility for weakness. We are Africa, proud, sovereign, and unshakable." The crowd of journalists erupted in applause once more. The clip of that closing line went as viral as the original exchange, cementing his words in history. Weeks later, university students in Africa, Asia, and Latin America quoted Traoré in debates. Protesters held signs bearing his words. Even in the West, commentators begrudgingly admitted that his poise had marked a turning point in how leaders from the global South demanded respect. The laughter that once echoed now seemed like a distant, awkward memory. What endured was the image of a young president standing tall, unbroken, his voice steady as he transformed mockery into a weapon of truth. And as history would record, in that moment, Ibrahim Traoré proved that dignity, when held with courage, can silence even the loudest laughter and turn the world's gaze toward justice.